about what he believes, and that is that deficits over the long term are going to be a problem, and you don't want to expand and extend tax cuts for the rich simply because of that. I mean, that's the height of hypocrisy.
So his relative epiphany plus what Mr. Greenspan said, let me see if I can summarize this. It's not okay, according to the Republicans, to stimulate the economy with borrowed money that goes to unemployment benefits, which Republicans blocked, or to small businesses tax breaks, which Republicans blocked. But it is okay to stimulate the economy with borrowed money that goes to the 2% richest people in the country.
Exactly, Keith. What we've seen again and again is Republicans who say and block unemployment insurance, and they block everything that the middle class needs, and they block sending money to the states so that teachers can stay employed. No, they say none of that's possible because we need to deal with the long-term deficit. But when it comes to extending the Bush tax cut for the top 2%, now we're talking about not the middle class, we're talking about the top 2% of Americans, Republicans, the same Republicans say, oh, well, the long-term deficit is not all that much of a problem. We really do need to extend the tax cut to the top. Well, if that's not hypocrisy, I don't know what is.
The other kind of tax cuts, you support extending tax cuts for the middle class. What happens if Democrats put that on the table?
Well, what's likely to happen, Keith, is a stalemate. That is, the Democrats are going to say, look, we want tax cuts to be extended for the middle class. They are beleaguered. They're getting out from under a huge pile of debt. They can't use their homes as ATMs any longer. And unless they can spend, this economy is not going to create new jobs. But on the other hand, Republicans are going to say the price for you to do that is going to be to extend the Bush tax cuts for the people at the top, the upper 2%. So there's going to be a little bit of a game of chicken going on.
Our next guest wrote and suggested that this was a litmus test for Republicans on whether they're going for increasing the debt or increasing the wealth of the wealthy. But I'd like your perspective on what this test is revealing about the Republican Party of today.
Well, first of all, it's revealing who their real patrons really are. It's not the middle class. It's certainly not the poor. It is the top 2%. It also, though, may reveal something about the American electorate. That is, the American electorate, remember, did fall for the Republican death tax notion that getting rid of the estate tax is necessary because, said the Republicans, everybody is going to be affected, when in fact the so-called death tax, the estate tax, only really affected the top 1.7%. Now here again, maybe Republican demagoguery can win out, but I think not if Democrats are making the clear case and also making it in ways that the public understands.
Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor in the Clinton administration, now at UC Berkeley. Great. Thanks for helping us understand tonight.
Thanks, Keith.
Let's turn now to the administrator of the litmus test, MSNBC contributor Ezra Klein of the Washington Post and Newsweek. Good evening, Ezra.
Welcome back, Keith.
Thank you kindly, sir. The results of your litmus test appear to be back from the lab. What's the diagnosis here, doctor?
It's not looking good. I fear we're going to lose a patient. Look, I don't want to say Republicans don't care about the deficit. I don't think I know that. I don't know if anybody can say it. What we can say is they care about tax cuts and military spending more. Under David Stockman, you had deficits go up because there were too many tax cuts, too much military spending. Under Bush, the same thing happened. And then when Democrats get into power, Republicans care about the deficit a lot, or at least they prefer reducing it to letting Democrats do things that aren't tax cuts and or military spending. But when they get back into power, we're back to sort of tax cuts that expand the deficit. So the thing I think you have to conclude isn't anything about the deficit per se, but that the core principle of the modern Republican Party is tax cuts. And if that comes at the massive cost of $3 trillion, $4 trillion on the deficit, so be it.
All right, but let me make sure I understand what you're saying. The Republicans are saying that the cure for the economy and its woes of the moment is to continue the exact same policies that were in place beforehand and are still in place now. Why would they, the tax cuts, why would they suddenly start helping the economy after the 1st of January when they didn't do anything to prevent the recession and apparently are doing nothing to end it?
Well, there's something to this. I should say that in a recession, I mean, if we do end the tax cuts, particularly for the middle class, that is a tax increase on the middle class. It isn't one Democrats created. It's what the policy said was going to happen, but it is non-stimulative. So if you believe in particularly middle class stimulus, saying we should raise taxes on the middle class or allow taxes to go up on the middle class is not a great idea. And it shows the trap Republicans put Democrats into 10 years ago. They couldn't extend the tax cuts for longer than that because they were using the reconciliation process to increase the deficit, which you can't do for more than 10 years. But they knew that when it ended, it would be very, very difficult for Democrats to allow a tax increase to take place. And now we're in the middle of a horrible recession that they did not manage to prevent. And so it's even more difficult. So there's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. And meanwhile, Republicans stand on the sidelines yelling about the deficit. But it is an incredible play they pulled off here.
If you cut out the preamble to what they're yelling about, if we agree with Palin and Boehner and McConnell that it's okay to borrow to stimulate the economy, which is what they're saying after that whole preface stuff. What's the most effective way to borrow to stimulate the economy?
Well, the most effective thing we can do for stimulus is food stamps. So you get $1.71 of stimulus for every dollar you spend on them versus the Bush tax cuts, which are 32 cents for every dollar you spend on them. But we are in fact cutting stimulus right now, or we're cutting food stamps right now to pay for state and local aid, which is also better than tax cuts. So this is one problem here. The argument that Republicans are at least giving to Democrats is you don't want to allow a good stimulus like a tax cut to expire during recession. And they're right about that. People who care about this are worried about that. But at the same time, they're forcing Democrats to cut very effective forms of stimulus and undersell others, like state and local aid. So we are in this bit of a pickle here, where Republicans are essentially giving up the thing they like because it's a tax cut, and Democrats can't let it go because it's stimulus, or Republicans block the stimulus that actually would work better and the Democrats would like to see happen.
MSNBC contributor Ezra Klein of the Washington Post and Newsweek, of course, as always. Ray, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
The relief wells may be abandoned. The static cap that has not yet been tried has already been declared a victory, and BP's commitment to the long-term health of the Gulf requires you to waive your long-term right to sue. Just when you thought the oil disaster in the Gulf was beginning to make sense, it isn't. Next.